What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Marketing Nomad Show. It's your favorite marketer and podcast host. My name is Prit. Today, I have a fantastic guest with me. Tyler, how are we doing today?
Oh, I'm doing well, Prit, and it's an absolute joy and pleasure to be here with you.
I'm super excited about this podcast episode. Tyler here. We're going to get into it, but today, for the most part, we're going to be talking about how to show up on your Instagram stories, how to get over the fright that you might have, before you show up on your stories, how to even tell a compelling stories. Wow, that's too many stories in one sentence. How to tell a compelling story on your Instagram stories, how to be more engaging for you as a business owner on your Instagram business account. So Tyler, being the expert on all of this, is going to lead us through, give us some amazing tips and tricks, and I can't wait for us to get into this podcast episode. So Tyler, before we get into the nitty-gritty of this episode, can you give us a little bit of information about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm a father, a husband, a son, entrepreneur, former child actor, best-selling author, and seeker of warm beaches, all in that order. And I've been on stage and performing in theater, film, and television since I was 6 years old. We're coming up the fourth decade of that now. So it's spanned 36 years of performing, and I don't know how to do anything else, even in all the other careers that I've had. From pivoting a little bit in my early 20s into stunt work, retiring from film at 25 to get an engineering discipline under my belt and start my own business in aerial photography and digital map making, and watching that business fail, and then moving into a safety realm and doing safety consulting, which seemed a very odd pivot at the time, but when you combine the engineering background with stunt work, it automatically becomes the right way to go. and then from that, really reigniting my passion around performance and public speaking, teaching other people how to give more engaging presentations. And instead of having the safety focus that it had initially, for the last 5 or 6 years, I've managed to make it just general public speaking. And as you said, helping people tell more engaging stories, get over the worry, what most people would consider stage fright, which is actually in reality a fear of public judgment, and releasing those fears because they're unnecessary, and just showing people how to do that effectively has been the focus of my life right now, and I'm enjoying every minute of it.
Wow, that's a lot of hats. And I mean, I can definitely see that you're doing it so well. I mean, was it difficult for you to transition through so many career paths? And, I mean, of course, finally it did lead you down the path where you found your passion. You're absolutely certain about what you're doing. But, through the course of, the 2 decades that you were telling me about, was it scary? Was it confusing to be in a path, not knowing where it was leading?
No, I'm one of those people who, again, I attribute a lot of my success and a lot of who I am as a person and my personality on growing up in the theater. And one of the things that you learn very early on in the theater is, to trust your instincts, for one, and to always embrace the moment, because that's the most real thing that you can do on stage. That's how you give a really compelling performance. And one of the things that you're taught when you're doing theater sports is to yes and. You never say no on stage. You add on to it. You agree to the scenario, however absurd it happens to be, and then you make the most out of that by adding on to it. And I think that philosophy has been something that I've translated into, quote unquote, the real world in everything that I've done. So as these things and these opportunities have presented themselves, I have yes and. absolutely, let's do that. Let's explore this. Why not? And I have always been comfortable in uncomfortable situations. You can't help but grow up in the theater and just be able to embrace that. And yes, there are times where I get into my little comfort zone and I find my little bubble and I'm happy in my safe, happy place. But it doesn't take long for me to start poking at the boundaries of it and trying to move the goalposts. So I have always found that the greatest rewards come on the other side of fear. And so anytime one of these things has presented itself, even when my business failed, you know, I had pivoted with, you know, again, an opportunity presented itself, go from aerial photography to scanned images, LiDAR, and digital photography. And then from that, translating it from the planes, taking pictures of the ground, to interior mobile mapping and taking pictures of the insides of buildings. And I thought it was going to be the greatest thing on the planet. And that technology has taken off. But I was about 10 years ahead of the curve, where it was expensive and not a lot of people knew about it or took advantage of it. And in my head, I could see all these possibilities, but it wasn't the right time for it. And I didn't know enough about business at the time to make that business really succeed and go forward. So unfortunately that collapsed, but it taught me some great lessons and allowed me to find some different pursuits and some different passions. You know, most people will agree with me that everything happens for a reason, or at least there's a design, or there is some rationale behind these events occurring in our lives. And if we just take the time to reflect on it, they become very obvious and very apparent. And each one of these moments in my life was critical in me getting to where I am now. I needed to have some business failures to have business savvy so that I could speak with business professionals in an appropriate manner. But I also needed to have the performance ability to be charismatic and engaging and help these people tell the story the right way. So all of the little pieces have combined to bring me where I am. So at no point was it really scary. There was a few times where I didn't know what I was going to do next, but even that wasn't terrifying. It was more confusing than anything else.
Wow, I really liked the extension of your theater knowledge where you said yes and then you kind of extrapolated that to life. And I think that if I have to look back on my life as well, there have been so many instances where I have applied yes and, but I just didn't know it was yes and. And that's such a beautiful way of looking at life, you know? And every time I have done yes and, it's led me down a much more amazing path that I probably had not envisioned previous to that. So I really like that yes and it's definitely something I'm going to incorporate, you know, intentionally in my life from now on. I really like that. It's two simple words, but so impactful, isn't it, Tyler?
It is, and it's funny because I actually use that within my team. So when I'm brainstorming, because I strongly believe in being the stupidest person in the room. Like, I surround myself with very, very smart, very, very talented people. My team is all far more brilliant than I am, which is great for me because it makes me look really good. But one of the things, I still have to guide this ship, right? It's still my company. It's my vision. And I've just created the support team around me that can help me see that vision to fruition. And so one of the first things that I did as I started to assemble my team and put these pieces in place is, any one of our meetings, anytime we have any situation where we need to be collaborative, where we're all pitching ideas, and especially with the amount of diversity that I have in my team, from both geographical location to expertise to personality, that not everybody always gets along. And there will be a lot of ideas that are put forth, and ultimately I have to disseminate that information and pick a path, right? I'll have lots of options, but I have to ultimately choose the path. And so one of the nice things about doing the yes and exercise is that everybody gets heard and feels that their contribution was at least considered. Because I don't go, no, that right. I say, yes, I like that idea because of this. And if we do this, and this could be the result. And then somebody else has to, we can't say no. It has to be a yes and they go, yes. And what I like about that is, and so we always have to find that one thing. So I could literally say, I think we need to detonate a nuclear bomb. And my team has to go, yes. What I like about that is it would essentially be a complete reset. So maybe if we reset it without the radiation, we could have this, and this. So they have to find what the good thing in it. And same with me. Like I have to find what is good in the suggestion and focus on that so that we're not completely and totally rejecting ideas, because some ideas are better than others. Not everything is a gold nugget. We get a lot of coal sometimes, but coal can always be used as fuel. And so that's the point of it, is try to find the useful bit within the suggestion and then expand on that. And it's amazing how when you free your team up to be creative like that, how quickly some of these ideas evolve to where you find a really good path. Like I'm asking for navigation advice and then just holding a wheel steady. That's all I do with this ship of mine that I'm charting these uncharted waters.
I know the podcast episode isn't about leadership, but that is some fantastic leadership advice over there. I definitely am taking notes, because I think as the business owner, you are supposed to be, I think you are supposed to be open to the suggestions, but at the same time, like you said, not all of them are going to be golden nuggets. And, sometimes coal does happen, but, the coal is what will give you the fuel. And I think that's some really nice analogy over there. And I really like that. So that's some fantastic leadership advice for my listeners. And I'm super, super grateful to have you on my show. And, now getting into the nitty gritty of today's podcast episode, where did your passion for storytelling actually start or begin?
Oh, that's a good question. I really don't know. I think it began in utero, because I'm pretty sure I was birthed a performer. Like I've been a performer my entire life. And even when I was young, like before I ever was on stage the first time, I was still that kid at 3 or 4 or 5 when the relatives would come over or friends would visit the house, that I was, putting on the show or doing a magic show or wanting to read a book to somebody. Even if I, at the time, couldn't actually read, I wanted to, explain the story. And I'm sure that is just ingrained in my DNA, but I know that it was first recognized in me, where it was a thing that was rewarded and really became a passion that was encouraged and fueled when I was about 6 years old. And that was, I'll never forget the first time being on stage, hearing an audience, first of all, laugh at something that I had done in a good way. And then get the applause, like just the sound of an audience applauding your work and then getting a standing ovation. That there is no feeling in the world that even comes close to it. And I chase that high every day now, having experienced it, over 30 years ago. And then the passion for storytelling comes from, because I've seen thousands of scripts, and I'm an avid reader. I love to read, and I've read really good novels that have profoundly influenced who I am. And I've read some really bad, trashy things that are just, fluff, both scripts and written work. And I think because of that, I want to always tell a good story. Especially because my career for so long has been making other people's words come alive, no matter how good or bad they are. You always appreciate a good script when you can read it and you're like, I know exactly how to deliver that. And then you always look at the bad scripts and go, I have no idea how I'm going to say this line, but I'll figure it out, and then you have to work it and try it different ways and do different tricks to try and infuse the correct feeling into that when it's not obvious. So for me, telling stories has been my entire life. Even when I wasn't in the performing arts, in business and in life, you're constantly telling the story of why somebody should invest their time with you. Like what makes your product worthwhile. And that is part compelling story, right? Anytime you're talking about really good ad copy or really good promotion or really good advertising, social media, as you said, trying to get those Instagram stories going, we're trying to sell ourselves or sell our product or sell our business, which is an extension of ourselves. And one of the big keys to really being successful in business is recognizing that your business is an extension of you. If you are at the top of it, if that is your baby, it is your baby. It is an extension of you. Your fingerprints, your DNA are all over it. And people want to know about that. Some of the best promotion are the ones where there's heart in it, and there's heart in it because it reveals, a glimpse into what ownership actually believes in. And that, I think that's the real key to good storytelling and why I love it so much, because it's my chance to express myself.
I think you bring up a very valid point there, that part of being a business owner means that you have to incorporate storytelling in a lot of ways, whether it is even telling your own story or your brand mission or your brand vision. And especially for me as a marketer, I have understood like the art of storytelling for a very long time. And it's something that I have grown up honing my skills towards it. I didn't know that I was heading towards a marketing profession. But for the most part, I too was a stage performer. I loved the high of it. And then, constantly working towards that. And I think that when we had our discovery call, we did talk about this and the fact that, I don't understand stage fright. It's something that I can't understand it. For me, I love going on the stage. I'm more excited than I am nervous. I don't think I'm nervous before I go on stage. And that's when, I just, talking to you listeners over here, that's when I realized that, I really wanted to bring Tyler on, because not only like he does not have any stage fright or whatnot, but he has understood the psychology behind stage fright, and he understands how to put yourself out there. And as a business owner, I think that's super, super important for us. And I don't think I would have been the best person to communicate that or to give you guys tips on that. And this is exactly what I told Tyler. I'm like, I'm bringing you on because I don't know how to explain this part. And I know that, you're the expert on this, and you're definitely going to help the business owners who are listening on this podcast how to get over their stage fright. Because whether it's showing up on your Instagram stories or whether it's showing up in front of an audience of maybe 10,000 people, it's the same. I think that there's a fundamental similarity between those two instances. And I think that if you can get over that fright and put yourself out there, be the face of your business, I think that it becomes that much more easier for you to build relationships with your clients, for you to attract the right clients, the customers that truly want to be associated with your brand vision, mission, and all of those things. So yeah, okay, that was a little bit too much on my end, but I really wanted to, let you guys know that this is the reason why I have brought Tyler on, and he's gonna give us so many tips on this. So Tyler, first off, let's get into the psychology behind stage fright, or why is it that people are so hesitant to be the face of their company on Instagram or social media, or for example, on stage as well?
Well, and let's just acknowledge that stage fright is a real thing.
It is, yes.
Most people will experience it. I am lucky in that I don't experience it often. It's not that I don't, it's just that I don't often, because my first experience on stage was positive and rewarding. And
Right.
where a lot of people's first experience expressing themselves in a public setting, in public speaking, is usually, I have found when there is, an overwhelming anxiety around public speaking, it usually stems from one of two popular, or at least common, scenarios. The one being called upon in an early grade, first, second, third, to answer a question and not knowing the answer, or thinking you know the answer and saying something that is incorrect, and the teacher correcting you, and all of the kids snickering and giggling and stupid. And then that becomes kind of that reinforcement of, if I use my voice in public, I will be judged and shamed. The other very common one comes from, if you had as a child, you were very vocal and rambunctious, and you had a parent who, to no fault of their own, because I'm a parent now and I understand it, that needed, just needed some quiet, that, mentality of children should be seen and not heard. When that really gets reinforced, you are to be seen and not heard, your voice becomes diminished from a psychological standpoint, and therefore you have a fear around using your voice in public because you have been asked not to from a very young age. And those are typically the two main scenarios, and there are others, but those are the main ones that tend to impact people in a very subconscious level, so that they have this fight or flight response, which is stage fright, to public speaking, right? It's the hippocampus recognizing danger falsely and going, now all of a sudden your body gets charged with adrenaline, and you get the fear and the shaking, and the body goes hot, cold, and all the moisture runs out of your mouth, and all this stuff that happens. The physiological responses to a psychological trigger are all because deep down in the subconscious, we fear that using our voice is going to be perceived negatively. Now, the reality is, and you know it and I know it, the stage can be one of the most rewarding places on the planet. And we as human beings love positive reinforcement, and there is no better positive reinforcement than multiple people at the same time applauding you and congratulating you. It is such a rewarding experience, but a lot of people won't ever experience that because they won't ever put themselves in that position because of this fear. And so what they need to recognize is, first of all, they're not afraid of public speaking. So that is usually the first barrier we need to get over. You're not afraid of public speaking, and we can prove this really quickly. If you were actually afraid of public speaking, i.e. speaking in public, commerce as we know it would collapse. You'd never be able to go to a bank. You'd never be able to go to the store. And you certainly would never be able to eat in a restaurant. So if any of your listeners right now have ever been in a restaurant, Britt, then they are not afraid of public speaking, because they've gone to a public place, spoken, probably to a stranger, because 9 times out of 10, you don't know your wait staff. At least the first time you go to a restaurant. You may become a regular and get to know them afterwards. But the first time you went, you didn't know your wait staff. So you spoke to a complete stranger in a public place, asked for what you wanted, and got it. So this, myth that I'm afraid to speak in public, I'm afraid to speak to strangers, and I'm afraid to ask for what I want, are all completely null and void if you've ever been to a restaurant, ordered food, and gotten that thing that you asked for. So that's the first thing, is to recognize we're not afraid. You can't keep telling this narrative that I'm afraid of public speaking, because it's just not so. The next thing is recognizing that what you're actually afraid of is public judgment. So now we have to break down, is that a reality? Is that public actually judging you? And if they are they doing it in the negative way that we tend to do in the self-talk in our head? And again, this is a very simple myth to break down, because all you have to do is think of the last time you yourself were an audience member. When was the last time you were in a boardroom, required to, at a presentation, or you were at a conference, or you went to any presentation, even the last time you were at a movie, or a play? When you got there, did you sit in the seat and think to yourself, man, I hope this sucks. I hope this is the worst performance. I hope I get nothing out of this. I really hope this speaker forgets everything that they're talking about, provides no value, and says stuff that I have already heard over and over and over again. That's not the reality, right? We don't do that, because if we genuinely thought that, we just wouldn't show up, right? Like if we didn't think we were going to get some value, even if it's a boardroom presentation and the boss has told us we need to be there as part of our job, we sit in that seat going, oh man, I hope this doesn't suck, right? Because you're now required to be there. So your hope is that it is good, because you don't want your time wasted. So recognizing that the audience wants you to succeed, they're on your side, because otherwise they just wouldn't be there. They're not judging you negatively. They are, in fact, judging you positively. They want you to succeed. They need you to succeed. Otherwise, they don't want to be there. The next thing to recognize is that you wouldn't have the opportunity to be speaking to them if you weren't the best choice to be there. We don't ask second best to do the presentation. We ask the best, or we get the best, right? If you are there, you are the authority, because no one else was able to do it the way that you could. So the audience is on your side, and you are the reason for them to gather, because you are the authority, or they wouldn't be there. And if you're the authority and they're on your side, why are you afraid of the judgment that they are theoretically putting on you? It doesn't exist. They want you to succeed. And so embracing that, and that becomes the mental trick of going, I am the authority, I belong here, and not adopting that imposter syndrome, because you wouldn't have been asked otherwise, even if it's an event that you've done. Like when I started speaking, and I started my speaking career, a lot of the events I was putting on myself, because nobody knew who I was, so I needed to gain a reputation. But I still knew that if people actually showed up, they were at least intrigued by what I said I was going to present, which meant I was the authority, because obviously they either didn't know, or even if they did know the material that I was presenting, they hadn't heard it my way. And that's the other thing to remember. Yes, if you Google right now, and Google hates when you say that, by the way. So if you do an internet search right now on your provider of choice, you could type in public speaking coach or speaker coach, and I guarantee you my name doesn't come up in the first 1,000 searches. But I know that I am an authority in public speaking, because I have the pedigree, because I have the history, and the clients that I have worked with rave about me because of who I am and how I work with them. So you could pick, thousands of other people. It doesn't change the fact that I am still an authority on public speaking. You don't become a #1 best-selling author by not saying things that aren't true. The funny thing is I'm not saying things that haven't already been said. I'm just saying and providing that information in my own way, in my own manner, the Tyler Foley way. And I think that's the real key to embracing your own authority. Yes, there are other people who know this material, but nobody knows it the same way that you do. Somebody may have more knowledge in it, but somebody else has less knowledge in it. You're not speaking to the people with more knowledge. You're speaking to the people with less knowledge. And maybe even the people with more knowledge will come just for a refresher. When I was doing a lot of safety training, there is a designation where I live called NCSO, National Construction Safety Officer. And in order to become an NCSO, you have to take a class called Principles of Health and Safety Management. And I used to be a contract instructor for this program. It is basically the base level safety certification for where I live. The highest level certification, like when you really know safety and you have had years and years of training and education behind you, you can get a designation called CRSP, Canadian Registered Safety Professional. There, one time I was instructing this class, and there was this just brilliant woman that was attending it, and she was a CRSP, very highly educated. It's a designation I don't even have. Like, she, on a pecking order and org chart, she's definitely miles ahead of me. But her company needed her to have this NCSO designation because it was one of the qualifications needed for her job. Even though she was vastly overqualified for this NCSO designation and really knew all the material, she still needed to take this class. And so when, we're doing the introductions at the beginning, I find out she's a CRSP, and I go, oh, this is going to be a boring class for you. But I recognized that she still needed to be here, and I needed to provide her some value. And at the end of the 2 days, and that's the other thing, it's a 2-day, 8-hour-a-day course, and this is all material that she knows. She came to me and she said, Tyler, I just want to thank you. I said, well, thank you. Why? And she said, the way that you presented that material reminded me of some things that I had become complacent of. And she said, I really appreciated how you delivered, and I spent most of my time watching your style as opposed to listening to what you were saying, because you were right. I know most of this material, but the way that you presented that information, I'd never heard before. It was an interesting viewpoint. So you got to remember, you have been asked because you're the expert. And even like in that scenario, that could have been really intimidating for me, because this person is lettered and credentialed far beyond anything that I have. And yet I didn't let it faze me. I stayed true to me. And then in the end, she ended up taking something away, even though really the knowledge base for her was there already. I didn't teach her anything new per se from an actual textbook standpoint, but I did present it in a different manner, in a different viewpoint that she hadn't considered before. And that's really true leadership. That's true understanding of material, is when you can present it your way. And really, that's all we're trying to do, right? Like realtors. In my city, there are over 10,000 realtors. How do you pick the one to go with? Well, it's the one who can explain the process the best to you in your way, and you're going to resonate with that person the best. And same with any other profession, right? And as a marketer, the way that you stand apart is not by saying, this is what I do. Really, the key is saying, this is how I do what I do. Or more effective, this is why I do what I do. And telling that story from your personal bit, because otherwise, I mean, like I said, there's 1,000, easily 1,000. Man, there's got to be 10,000, 100,000 other speaker coaches on the planet. I mean, there's 7.5 billion people on this blue marble of ours. So surely there are a few other people who are doing what I'm doing, but nobody does it my way, even though the information that I'm presenting is very likely tried and true over centuries, really.
Wow, that's some powerful, powerful stuff, Tyler. I really, really enjoyed the way that you answered this entire question. I'm just in awe. So thank you so much for that. But what you say is absolutely true. I mean, I think that, yes, especially when I first started with my business as well, I do understand that, there's so many marketing consultants over there what am I going to bring to the table that's going to be different? And the answer to that question was me. I'm the one who's different, you know? And it was just such a simple answer for me, but it was so difficult to actually execute that. And it is like a conscious effort for me personally to make sure that every single time I'm putting myself out to the public, I am me. And for the most part of this year, I think I've been very intentional with that. And I've also realized that I've started attracting the clients who actually like me, as in the style that I, give the consultation and whatnot. And I think that's just really, I think it's really positive affirmation over there that, if you are true to yourself, you put yourself out there, you are the way you are for your business, as the front of your business, it can attract the kind of clients that you're looking for, because you never know. I mean, I'm not kidding, Tyler. I do Bollywood dancing on my Instagram page. Okay. And for me, that's just who I am. That's just a part of me. And I have had people hire me because I do that, because in some way they resonated with my passion for dancing, or, me in love with Bollywood and just breaking free. And I personally like that about my business. I think it's also very liberating in a lot of ways. Don't you feel that?
Absolutely. Well, and that's the thing. It's incredibly freeing when you don't have to put on a persona, right? When you can just be you. It's one of the things that I love about what I do right now, because previously I had to put on these facades and these masks to play other characters. And now I just get to be me. I get to show up as Tyler every day. And one of the other things too, not only is it freeing because you get to be you and you're not trying to be somebody you're not, but it's also freeing because, as you said, it's going to attract the people to you that resonate with you, because that frequency that you're giving off is going to have harmonics somewhere, and you're going to get that back. But the other thing that it does, and why it's really, 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 truly freeing, is when you are being true to yourself and you are unabashedly you. You're drawing the people to you that need to work with you. It's not even that they want to work with you, they need to work with you. But you're also repelling the people who are like, no, I'm not trusting Bollywood dancing marketer chick, right? For me, I'm like, oh yeah, Britt, you do it. You take that. Because for me, I'm like, now that's somebody who understands performance, right? That's somebody who embraces, and Bollywood. I mean, I think people forget. So I'm about to geek out. People forget that Bollywood is bigger than Hollywood. You're
Yes.
entertaining billions of people as opposed to a couple million, right? And yeah, Hollywood releases go out, but nobody does cinema. Nobody does cinema the way that India does cinema. And I love love Bollywood. I don't think, and I'm sure there's going to be a large portion of your audience who understands this, but there's also going to be a few who this will be new information, right? I don't think they understand that when we start doing a lot of the Bollywood film dancing, it's because of India's censorship, right? Like we couldn't show kiss, we certainly couldn't show any sex. So the dancing became an extension and a way of symbolically representing a lot of those love stories that cinematographically couldn't have been shown in India, which actually, in my opinion, makes it better, because Hollywood is like, I mean, you can see all kinds of things that you couldn't have seen even 10 years ago. Like I have a 6-year-old daughter. I have to really censor even, PG stories now, where I'm like, that's a little adult.
That's a lot of hard work.
I don't know that she should see that, where there is real artistry in Indian cinema, and I'm a super fan. So what I'm saying is your Instagram resonates with me, right? And there are other people who will be like, no, I'm sorry, no sorry. And that's what you can do. But for me, I'm all over
Absolutely. I really think that. And like the beginning of when I started my business, in the first year that I started my business, this is going off tangent, but when I started my business, I felt that I needed to be very professional. I mean, professional in the sense formal, because I am still professional on my Instagram account. I do keep it PG-13 and all of those things. But, I had to be formal. I had to be a certain way. I had to dress a certain way. And then at some point, I was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore, because I was attracting the wrong clients at that point. It's just the vibe. I mean, they were attracted to that vibe, but that vibe was not me. So I inherently was not, getting back with them, and I was not resonating with them, and I was not happy with the projects that I was getting. And then after I started, being a lot more open, I said, you know what? It's okay. I'm just going to be me. I'm doing Bollywood dancing. I'm doing fun reels, witty reels, all of those things. I started attracting the right kinds of clients. And for me, I think that, I guess in a way, I think that was stage fright. And like you said, it wasn't particularly stage fright, more of people judging me, because I think there's a certain perception of how a business owner must be on social media or whatnot. And for me, I think it was very liberating to break out of that norm.
And the success that you saw from it. And I think that's what people need to hear and to really understand, that you are a shining example of what happens when you get out of the image of what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
Right? Stop shooting on yourself.
Yep.
You don't do you unabashedly you, because there's only one of you on the planet. There's, you and I both know, millions of marketers on the planet.
Yep.
But there's only one Prit.
Yes.
And there's only one me.
Yep.
And I can only do me to the best of my ability. And if that becomes the focus, and I'm glad that you saw the distinction in, I am always professional. I am always professional.
Yep.
Because I am a professional. I am going to show up and do my absolute best, and I am going to serve my clients absolutely above and beyond in every way that I can. I stretch myself for every client that I can, because I do not feel that if I leave something on the table, I haven't served them.
Yep.
Right? I want to be of service. And I really do think of it as a dinner menu, right? If I keep the appetizer to myself, or if I keep the dessert to myself, and my main course may be fantastic, I may serve a 7-course meal. But if I kept the soup away, they didn't get to try everything. And I didn't do my best to make sure that they left the table satiated.
Yes.
And so I am always going to be professional, but I'm still the chef.
Yes.
So I'm going to serve my food. And if, you're not a fan of Western cuisine, you're not going to like my sloppy joes, and you may not like the Nanaimo squares that I serve for dessert. You may not even like the fact that I serve unsweetened, real, actual brewed iced tea. Maybe you want sweetened iced tea, right? But I'm going to give you my menu my way, and the people who like it will recognize that I make my food the best way possible. And
Absolutely.
You are going to serve your dishes up your way. And that's the great thing. People who don't want to dine from your restaurant will go somewhere else. And that's the best part, because then you don't have people going, oh, that food was too hot for me. You're like, well, don't come to an Indian restaurant then. Like
yes.
Clue in, right? If you don't want to enjoy the greatest butter chicken and naan bread, don't come to my restaurant. It's not going to serve you.
Yep.
And quit complaining about it too. And that's the great thing. When people know what they're getting, that's the problem. Because when you were doing it before, you're like, I'm all business, right? People are coming in expecting that they're going to get KFC, and they're not getting the fried chicken, right? Nope. And that's probably a little too spiced for their palate. So when you can be you,
yes,
people are going to appreciate what you bring to the table, and they're going to rave about you. And that's the real key, is understanding in any scenario, if you've been asked to present, you're the authority.
Yep.
And all you need to do is bring you to the table, so one final point for your listeners.
Yes.
The thing you're afraid to say is very likely what your audience needs to hear.
Wow.
People needed to hear that you were all business until you decided to start
Yes.
doing Bollywood dancing. Like I needed to embrace the fact that I was an actor, right?
Yes.
For so many years, I tried hiding it on my resume, and I was in job after job after job that would get, I was trying to be professional. And then when I show up all personality, they're like, whoa, you're a lot for this engineering firm. I'm like, your engineering firm is way too little for me. Until I realized that I could still do me in my capacity, but I had to be authentic and true to myself. And that's the other thing too. I think that word authentic is overused. For me, authenticity is synonymous with self-awareness. You can't be authentic if you
Yes,
don't know who you
absolutely.
are at your core. And when you can really truly recognize that, then you can show up in a quote unquote authentic manner. Tell your information your way and don't shy away from it. Don't try to present the information the way you think somebody wants you to or that you
Yes.
should. Present the information the way that it makes sense to you, because that's what made you the expert, the authority. That's why you were asked to present to begin with. And just do you the best way possible and strive to continually show up the best you, the best version of you, and you will always serve your audience then.
Absolutely. And just as a side note to the listeners, when I first, basically, Tyler had sent me a small message, I remember. And the first thing that jumped out to me from that message was actor, speaker, I think there was an engineer and then best-selling author and all of those things. And for me, I think now that you're talking about embracing the actor in you and making sure you put that on your resume, I think you really did a fantastic job. And for me, that is what appealed to me. And I said, hey, I really, want Tyler Foley to come on my podcast episode because I think he definitely knows what he's doing. He knows his stuff. He's the expert. He's done so many different things with his life. So I definitely want to, confirm to the listeners that yes, he definitely means what he's saying, because I have seen it in live action when he talks about himself. So 100%
Well,
there, Tyler.
Since you bring it up, let's actually read to your audience my message to
Yes,
you, wanting
absolutely.
to be on the Marketing Nomad show,
Yes.
because I really did. I love what you do. It resonated with me, and I wanted to be on your show. So this is the actual message because I have it up. Hi, Prit. If you ever have time on your show for a stuntman who became a safety professional or an actor who became an engineer only to walk away from the 9 to 5 to become a speaker and #1 best-selling author, then I have a 2-for-1 for you, as I am both. Right.
See?
And that's all. That's my opening sentence.
So impactful. Like, I saw the first 2 lines, and you know how you get a preview, right? I saw the first 2 lines and I'm like, whoa, right off the bat, it spoke something to me. Right off the bat, there was a story that you were starting to tell, and it absolutely captivated my attention. And, the rest is history, of course. We're here, but, like I said, listeners, definitely, do reach out to Tyler if you have any questions about storytelling. He does it so well, as you probably have realized from this podcast episode. And Tyler, if I, have to wrap up this entire podcast episode with 3 actionable tips to my audience, because I know that we've spoken a lot, I just want to kind of emphasize the last 3 tips that you have for them. What would they be?
Well, the first thing is to recognize that your story doesn't need to be a Hollywood or Bollywood blockbuster. It doesn't need to be directed by Michael Bay. It doesn't need to have explosions to be something that resonates with your audience. What matters is that it's important to you. So when we're trying to find some of these stories, right, how do I personalize my message? A really quick way to do it is to take your age and divide it by 5. And use very simple math. Like, don't worry about, well, I'm 43 or 42 or I'm 36. Like, how do I divide these numbers? I'm 21, right? Go use simple math, round to the nearest 5 for you, and then divide that number. And that will be, what that will give you is 5 even time periods in your life. And what I want you to do is I want you to look at those time periods and say, what is the biggest memory that I have from that time period? What is the thing that when I think of that age, like for me, if I was to do this exercise, I'm 42. So I would divide 40 by 5, and that's going to give me even time periods of 8. So what is my most significant memory from 8? And for me, I'll take that remainder. I'll take those extra 2 years. I'll even tack it on to the beginning, give myself a little bit of buffer. So what's my most significant memory from 8 to 10? And for me, I have 2 very powerful memories. And we've talked about one of them already on the show. It's 6 years old, hearing an audience clap. It had a profound influence on me. And we can all do this. I guarantee you, anyone who does this very simple process, they will come up with 5 very clear, very evident memories. Where the work comes in is exploring the why. Why is this memory important to you? And then start to incorporate that into your messaging, because very likely, if it's that significant a memory, it has impact and influence on the decisions that you make, including the ones that you're making right now, which is very likely on a conscious or subconscious level, influencing how you're doing business and why you're doing business. Now, people don't work with you because of what you do. They work with you because of how you do it and why you do it. And it's the why that they really are going to resonate with. I'm going to resonate with the fun and the dancing because I'm a performer at heart. So I see another performer and I'm like, I want to work with that person. I see somebody who's all business and I'm like, not even a chance. And that's the importance of why I do it. Why I do it, because this is an extension of me. And so I need to know who you are. Like, what is the driving force behind this business? What is the passion? And if you can start to tell those stories because they're important to you, I promise you they will be important to the people who need to hear that. And that's why I say the thing you're afraid to say is very likely the thing your audience needs to hear. I, for forever, tried to shy away from the fact that I was an actor because I needed to be professional in business. And now I embrace it and I bring in the clientele that goes, oh, yeah, I'm going to trust him. Sure, Carnegie has a good name behind them. And yeah, they've trained thousands and thousands and thousands of speakers and have a good process. But this dude was actually on stage and he's been doing it since he was 6. I think I have something to learn from him. And those are the people who I want to work with. And the people who are like, that has nothing to do with, I need to give a business presentation and I'm going to Toastmasters. And to them, I say, good day, sir, and enjoy. You know, the people who want to resonate with me will resonate with me. And I can't be afraid or ashamed of that. I need to embrace that. And when I embrace that, that's when I succeed. And your listeners can do it too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely agree. And, you know, it's not wrong if someone doesn't want to go with you. I mean, I think that perception shouldn't even be there. It's okay. It's okay if they don't choose you, because the ones who, you know, truly resonate with your vibe, with your personality and the why of what you do, as you mentioned, will stick around, you know, and there's abundance out there. So I think it's also working from an abundance mindset as well. And we can, you know, it's a huge different topic altogether.
Episode number 2, we will go into abundance.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Tyler. This has been such a fun and fantastic episode. I enjoyed recording this with you. I'm pretty sure that my listeners have had a lot of tips and definitely a very empowering episode. I feel it. I'm walking away from this episode feeling like, yes, you know, what I'm doing is absolutely right. I've got to put myself out there. This is the way. And I'm definitely going to keep in mind, yes, and when I'm working through my business. So definitely. Thank you so much, Tyler. It's been an absolute honor.
Oh, thank you for having me on, Prit.
All righty, guys. For those of you who are listening all the way up until here, thank you so much for, you know, listening. I hope that this podcast episode has helped you in some way. If you do want to reach out to Tyler, I'm going to put all of his links in the description box below. Tyler, would you want to just mention the links, like your website or your social media pages? Feel free to do so.
Yeah, no, anybody who is interested, feel free to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of them. I use my full name because it makes my mother happy. So you want to look for SeanTylerFoley.com. And at the website, Sean Tyler Foley. Sean is spelled the proper Irish way, Sean. So if you go to SeanTylerFoley.com, you can find all of my social links are on there. And for your listeners, Prit, if they do go there, they can sign up and find the link to my free Facebook group called Endless Stages, and I go on there live weekly and do training, and it's free for everybody, and everybody who signs up gets a whole bunch of bonus resources too, because I don't want it to be, there's so many Facebook groups out there and everybody wants you to join them, and then they just become notifications on your sidebar that you never pay attention to. And that is not what I want out of this group. One of the things that I like the most about it is a highly engaged group. We have a lot of really good content and a lot of people who are getting a lot out of it. And I put my heart and soul into it. So for the people who do want to work with me, it's a great way to kind of learn my style and learn it for free. And if you don't like it, you can always step away from the group and no hard feelings. But I do like to give more than I receive. And so anybody who signs up through the webpage, as opposed to just going directly to Facebook to do it, gets a whole bunch of free bonuses. So we have my online training course, Drop the Mic. We give that to people free. I have a whole bunch of PDF resources from 35 years of public speaking that I compress into it. So we do like to give that away. So anybody who wants to, SeanTylerFoley.com. But I'm not letting your listeners go there if they don't do something for you, Prit.
Okay.
And we're already listening to this, right? Yes. So they're already on a device. They're listening to this. I would absolutely love it if they would hit pause right now and continue your 5-star rating on the Marketing Nomad Show. So if they could just hit pause on whatever device they are, if they haven't already, give you a thumbs up, a like, a 5-star, give a review. Right? Like what was their favorite episode? Who was the best guest that they had? Did they like Marketing on a Shoestring Budget? Did they enjoy your episode where you talked about the touch points on funnels? Like give a review that helps other people find you, so that it's a little bit more engaging, and let them know. And if they're willing to give you that 5-star review, once they come to the page, I'll give them all the freebies.
Yes. Okay. That is so sweet, Tyler. Thank you so much. And yes, guys, please do. It really helps me with the ranking. It really helps me help more business owners such as yourself with their marketing mindset and business strategies as well. Thank you so much, Tyler. I hope you guys are staying safe, staying healthy. I'll catch you guys in my next podcast episode. Bye, guys.